The silence was the first sign that the old rhythms of the North Atlantic had finally snapped. For decades, the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation had been the planet's conveyor belt, dragging warm water north to keep Europe's winters gentle. But the belt had frayed, slowed by a steady deluge of fresh meltwater, until it simply seized. One recent autumn, as Greenland dumped its ice melt into the gyre, the warm buffer the Norwegian coast used to have stopped, trapped thousands of miles south. Then the wind arrived. This storm didn't start swirling on a satellite map. It started as a heat cliff, a steep, alarming plunge, diving into the cold. Yes, to the south, the tropics were delightfully overheated, overloaded with heat that had nowhere to go. But to the north, the Arctic air, displaced by a sudden stratospheric warming and no longer buffered by a warm, salty Atlantic, plummeted into a deep, screaming freeze, a low roar. Elias watched his barometer. The needle wasn't just dropping, it was free-falling. To a weather guy, this was apocalyptic. Elias was stunned by what he saw. This was a new record. For, to see the math not even making sense, the storm had to be a meteorological anomaly, a triple bomb fueled by the collapse of the planet's primary heat regulation system. "It's a double. No, a triple," he prayed in a scratchy whisper. "But the gradient, oh Lord." When the superheated air from the stalled Gulf Stream rose to meet the polar vortex of the north, the atmosphere didn't just move. It was like a gale of glass. It hit at 3 a.m. In a world with a functioning AMOC, this would have been a hard, wet wash. In this world, it was a dinosaur, a cryo-hurricane, a bestial thing unseen since the last glacial phase of the Ice Age. The wind arrived not as a whistle, but as a tempest, part earthquake, a continent mover. Winds clocked at 210 kilometers per hour, carrying the dense, heavy cold of the polar cell. The ice shock. Because the ocean surface was now significantly colder than the previous decade's average, there was no buffer. Rain turned to ice pellets mid-air, sandblasting house paint. The AMOC's failure caused sea to pile up along North Atlantic coasts. The storm pushed this bulge inland. Elias watched from his reinforced window as the harbor water rose, not in waves, but in a steady tide. The salt vapor, hitting the sub-zero air, began to steam, a sea smoke so thick it swallowed the lighthouse. By dawn, the wind had gone, leaving peace. The village was encased in a 3-inch shell of clear ice. Without the AMOC to distribute heat, the North Atlantic had become a playhouse of atmospheric violence. This likely wasn't a once-in-a-century event anymore. It was probably the new normal, a seasonal tax for a failing and broken current. Elias looked at the ice hanging in the doorframe. He gazed at the brilliant, empty blue sky. The conveyor belt had stopped, and in its place, the wind rediscovered its teeth. The warmth was gone, and the storms were just getting started. Winter was here. Potassium bicarbonate is a supplement used to treat low potassium levels, hypokalemia, and can help lower blood pressure, particularly in individuals with high sodium intake or hypertension. It acts as an electrolyte replenisher and an alkaline mineral, contributing to improved heart health, endothelial function, and vascular health.